The silence of deep space was broken by a signal. It was not like the usual chatter between planets or the routine reports from trade ships. This signal was desperate, urgent, a cry for help that pulsed across the stars. Commander Ziv of the Raxian High Council stared at the communication screen, his four eyes blinking rapidly in distress. The holographic display showed the advance of the Void Scourge, a massive cloud of tiny silicon creatures that moved like one giant being. Already 3 outer planets in their system had gone dark. The defensive line at Raxus 4 has fallen, reported Officer Keel, her voice trembling. Estimated civilian casualties at 8 million. Commander Ziv's scaled skin turned a pale blue, the Raxian sign of deep grief. How long until they reach the homeworld? 4 days? Maybe 5, Keel answered. The Raxians were among the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. For over 10,000 years they had explored the stars, built wonders, and developed technology that seemed like magic to younger species. Yet none of their advanced weapons could stop the Void Scourge. "We have no choice," Commander Ziv said finally. "Send the distress signal to everyone." The decision was historic. The proud Raxians had never asked for help before. For centuries, they had kept themselves separate from what they called the less developed species of the galaxy. But pride meant nothing when facing extinction. The signal went out, a complex pattern of mathematical equations that carried a simple message in its solution: help us or we all die. At the edge of explored space, the human mining outpost on asteroid DH7 was having a routine day. The 30-person crew was busy extracting rare minerals needed back on Earth and in the few human colonies. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago, making them newcomers to the galactic community. Captain Elena Reyes was reviewing production reports when the communication officer burst into her office. "Captain, you need to see this," said Officer Park, holding out a datapad. "We've picked up some kind of signal. It's not using any communication protocol." "I recognize." Reyes took the pad and studied the stream of data. Her eyes widened. Unlike Park, she immediately saw the pattern. "This is a distress call," she said. "And it's brilliant. The math itself is the message." For the next hour, Reyes worked with the station's small AI system to decode the full message. When she finished, her face was grim. "The Raxians are under attack by something called the Void Scourge. From what I can understand, it's consuming entire planets." Park looked confused. "The Raxians? Aren't they the ones who refused to trade with us last year? Said we were too primitive?" "Yes," Reyes nodded. "Which means if they're asking for help now, the situation must be desperate." Park frowned. "What can we do? We're just a mining operation." Reyes was already sending messages to Earth Command. "We can respond. Let them know someone heard them. And then we can do what humans always do. Figure something out." 2 days later, Captain Reyes stood in a virtual meeting with representatives from the Galactic Council. The Council was made up of the oldest and most advanced species in the galaxy. Humans had applied for membership 5 years ago, but were told they needed at least another century of cultural development before they would be considered. "Your signal response to the Raxians was inappropriate," said Councillor Talvek, a tall, blue-skinned Zalosian. "This is a matter for advanced civilizations to handle." Reyes kept her face neutral, though she felt her anger rising. "With respect, Counselor, the signal was sent to everyone. We simply responded first." "Because you misunderstood the nature of the message," argued another council member, a floating orb of light that represented the Luminari Collective. "The mathematical complexity was designed to be understood only by sufficiently advanced minds." Reyes smiled slightly. "Yet we solved it in under an hour." This caused a stir among the council members. The Luminari orb flickered in what might have been surprise. "Nevertheless," continued Talvek, "the Void Scourge is beyond your capacity to fight. They are silicon-based entities that move as a hive mind. They have destroyed 3 civilizations more advanced than yours already." "Then, why haven't you stopped them?" Reyes asked simply. An uncomfortable silence followed. "The Council is developing a long-term containment strategy," Talvek said finally. "The Raxian situation, while unfortunate, provides valuable data for our models." Reyes couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're watching them die to gather data? We are seeking the optimal solution that protects the greatest number of galactic citizens, corrected the luminary. Premature action could lead to greater catastrophe. Reyes shook her head. While you're optimizing your models, the Raxians have days left. We've already sent our response. Hold position. We're coming. You've what? Tahalvek's skin changed, color in alarm. With what forces? Your species barely has interstellar capability. We're working on that part, Reyes admitted. But when someone calls for help, humans answer. This is precisely why your species is not ready for council membership, Talvek said coldly. You act on emotion rather than logic. One small human outpost cannot hope to affect this situation. Reyes leaned forward. We're not just one outpost anymore. I've relayed the signal to Earth. In the last 48 hours, every human ship in range has changed course toward Raxian space. The council members exchanged looks of what appeared to be concern. Captain Reyes, said the luminary in a tone that might have been meant to sound kind, your species is young. You don't understand what you're facing. The Void Scourge will destroy your ships before you even reach the Raxian system. Maybe, Reyes acknowledged. But we have to try. As the meeting ended, Reyes received a message from Earth Command confirming what she'd told the Council. Humanity was mobilizing. Mining ships, colony vessels, even science platforms, all were being quickly retrofitted with whatever weapons could be installed and sent toward Raxian space. Reyes looked out the viewport of her small outpost at the stars beyond. The Raxians had never shown humans any kindness. The Council thought humans were too primitive to help, but none of that mattered now. Someone had called for help, and humans would answer, not because it was logical, not because there was something to gain, but because that's what humans did when others were in danger. The galaxy was about to learn something important about the young species they had dismissed as primitive. Humans never left anyone behind. 3 days after Captain Reyes sent her response to the Raxians, Earth was buzzing with activity. News of the distress signal had spread quickly, and humanity had made its decision with surprising speed. We've never seen anything like this, said Admiral Chen, looking at the screens showing ships gathering in Earth orbit. 217 vessels, mining ships, colony transporters, science vessels, and every military craft we have. General, Rodriguez nodded. When we put out the call, I expected maybe 50 ships, but everyone volunteered. The two leaders stood in Earth Command's main control room. Around them, hundreds of people worked at stations coordinating what would be humanity's first major action as a galactic species. Captain Reyes is already on her way with the mining outpost crew, Admiral Chen said. I'm appointing her as mission commander. General Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. She's young, only 10 years of service. She was first to respond to the signal, Chen replied. And she solved their mathematical message faster than anyone else could have. She understands something important about this mission. On the main screen, they watched as ships of all shapes and sizes formed into groups. None of them were designed for major combat. Humans had fought their own wars in the past, but since reaching space, they had focused on exploration and mining. Their few military vessels were meant for protection against pirates, not all-out war. Will it be enough? Rodriguez asked quietly. Admiral Chen didn't answer right away. It will have to be. Aboard the mining vessel now renamed EDF Thermopylae, Captain Reyes supervised the transformation of her ship. The cavernous mining bays that once held extracted minerals were being converted into makeshift fighter bays. Engineers worked around the clock, adapting mining tools into weapons. The mining laser's power output has been tripled, reported Chief Engineer Ortiz, pointing to the massive device at the front of the ship. We've had to remove all safety limiters. It will overheat after 10 shots, but those 10 shots will be powerful enough to cut through almost anything. Reyes nodded. What about shields? We've repurposed the magnetic field generators from the ore separation systems, Ortiz explained. They won't stop a direct hit from advanced weapons, but they should offer some protection against the Void Scourge's smaller units. As they walked through the ship, Reyes noticed the crew working with grim determination. Everyone understood the mission was dangerous, possibly suicidal, yet no one had asked to leave. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Park, "the Council representatives have arrived." Reyes sighed. The Galactic Council had insisted on sending observers with the human fleet, not to help, but to document the mission. What they really meant was they wanted to watch humans fail. 3 aliens walked onto the bridge, led by Ambassador Talvek, of the Zolosians. His blue skin seemed to glow under the ship's lights, and his forearms were folded in what Reyes had learned was a gesture of disapproval. "Captain Reyes," he said, his translator making his voice sound metallic, "I must again express the Council's concern about this mission." Reyes gestured to the seats prepared for them. "Your concerns are noted, Ambassador, but we're proceeding as planned." The second alien, a luminary who appeared as a floating orb of golden light, moved forward. "We have analyzed your fleet's capabilities. You have a 0.0087% chance of making any significant impact against the Void Scourge." "Never tell me the odds," muttered Engineer Ortiz under her breath, making several crew members smile. Reyes kept her face serious. "Our analysts have different numbers." This wasn't exactly true. Earth's scientists had no idea if anything they were planning would work. But Reyes had learned that sometimes confidence was as important as facts. The third council representative, a tall, plant-like being, named Vorel, spoke in a whisper-like voice. "The Raxians refused to share technology with your species just last year. They called humans barely evolved primates. Why risk your lives for them?" The bridge went quiet as everyone looked at Reyes. It was a fair question. "Because they asked for help," she said simply. "That's enough for us." The alien representatives exchanged glances that suggested they found this reasoning incomprehensible. As the council members were shown to their quarters, Officer Park approached Reyes. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's the science team." On the screen appeared Dr. Lakshmi Patel, head of Earth's Xenobiology Research Division. "Captain Reyes, we've been analyzing the limited data we have on the Void Scourge. We think we've found something useful." Reyes leaned forward. "Go on." "The Scourge is silicon-based," Dr. Patel explained. "All previous attempts to fight them have used energy weapons or physical projectiles. But what if we target their unique silicon structure instead?" She held up a small device. "We're calling this an EMP disruptor. It generates an electromagnetic pulse specifically calibrated to disrupt silicon-based neural networks. It won't kill them, but it should temporarily confuse them." "How many of these can you make?" Reyes asked. "We're manufacturing them now. Every ship in the fleet will have at least 10 by launch time. But they're short-range weapons, Captain. You'll need to get close to deploy them effectively." Reyes nodded. "We can handle close. What else?" "We're sending you all the data. But there's something else you should know." Dr. Patel's face grew serious. "The Raxian system has gone silent. We've lost contact with them." In Earth orbit, the human fleet prepared for departure. Ships that had never been designed to work together formed into groups based on hastily created battle plans. Mining vessels had been fitted with improvised weapons. Passenger ships had been converted to carry fighters and emergency medical facilities. Inside the Thermopylae, Reyes addressed the combined fleet captains via holographic communication. "We don't know exactly what we'll find when we reach Raxian space," she said. "We don't know if anyone there is still alive, but we know our mission. First, we save anyone we can. Second, we stop the Void Scourge from spreading further." She looked at the faces of the other captains, some young, some old, all focused on her words. "This isn't just about the Raxians anymore," she continued. "If this threat isn't stopped, it could eventually reach human space. Every world in the galaxy is at risk." From his observer position, Ambassador Talvek watched with a mixture of fascination and concern. He had never seen a species mobilize so quickly, with such unity of purpose. The Council had spent weeks just debating whether to send observers to study the Void Scourge. These humans had assembled a fleet in days. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump," Reyes commanded. "Our course is set for the Raxian home system. We'll arrive in approximately 27 hours. One by one, the ships of the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. None of the crew knew if they would ever see their home planet again. But they had made their choice. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Raxian people waited for help that the rest of the galaxy had refused to send. Humanity was coming. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Raxian system. Captain Reyes stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, staring at the main screen with horror. What had once been a thriving system of 9 planets was now barely recognizable. 3 of the outer planets were completely gone, not destroyed but consumed down to their cores. Where they had been, only clouds of dust remained. The 4th planet was being actively devoured by what looked like a massive black cloud. Sensors detect billions of individual entities in that cloud, reported Officer Park. Each one is about the size of a small insect, but they're moving as a single organism. The Void Scourge, whispered Ambassador Talvek, his blue skin turning pale, just as the reports described. Reyes studied the tactical display. Where are the Raxians? Any signs of survivors? Park adjusted the sensors. I'm detecting approximately 200 Raxian vessels near the inner planets. They appear to be in defensive formation around their homeworld. Open a communication channel, ordered Reyes. After a few moments, the screen showed the face of a Raxian. Like many advanced species, they had a somewhat humanoid appearance, though their skin was covered in small scales, and they had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. This particular Raxian looked exhausted, with dark markings under each eye. This is Commander Ziv of the Raxian Defense Force, he said. Identify yourselves. Captain Elena Reyes of Earth. We received your distress signal and have come to help. The Raxian's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Earth? The human world? He seemed confused. Where is the Galactic Council fleet? There is no Council fleet, Reyes replied simply. Just us. Behind her, the Council representatives shifted uncomfortably. Commander Ziv was silent for a moment. Humans, the mining species, with the primitive FTL drives. His voice wasn't insulting, just stating facts as he knew them. That's us, Reyes confirmed. We've brought 217 ships. What's the situation? Ziv seemed to recover from his surprise. We have less than 12 hours before the Scourge reaches our homeworld. We've evacuated as many as we could, but billions remain on the surface. Our weapons slow them down, but nothing stops them. Reyes nodded. We have a plan. It might work, it might not, but we're ready to try. For the first time, a flicker of hope appeared in the Raxian commander's eyes. What do you need from us? Coordinate your defense forces with ours, and be ready for some unusual tactics. As the communication ended, Ambassador Talvek approached Reyes. What exactly is your plan, Captain? Even with your fleet, you are outnumbered billions to 1. Reyes turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Kim, explain Formation Hydra. The young officer pulled up a holographic display. The Void Scourge moves like a swarm but thinks like a single entity. It expects logical, predictable defense patterns, which is exactly what we won't give them. The display showed the human ships arranging into what appeared to be a chaotic, disorganized pattern. Instead of a unified defense, we'll attack in seemingly random groups. Each group will operate independently, targeting different areas of the swarm. The Scourge won't be able to predict where we'll strike next. Ambassador Tahalvek looked skeptical. And you believe this disorder will succeed? Where organized defense has failed, sometimes chaos is the best weapon against order, Reyes replied. All ships prepare to deploy EMP disruptors. Move into Hydra formation. Commander Ziv watched in bewilderment as the human fleet broke into dozens of small groups, spreading out in patterns that made no tactical sense to him. After centuries of military tradition, the Raxians had developed precise mathematical approaches to space combat. What the humans were doing seemed like madness. Should we adjust our formations to support them? Asked his second-in-command. Ziv hesitated. No. Hold our defensive line. Let's see what they're planning. The Void Scourge, having finished consuming the fourth planet, began moving toward the inner system. The massive cloud of silicon entities accelerated as if sensing the rich prize of the heavily populated Raxian homeworld. To the Raxians' surprise, the human vessels surged forward to meet the swarm. Small groups of ships darted directly into the cloud, something no Raxian commander would ever order. "They're sacrificing themselves," said Ziv, second in command, with a mix of horror and respect. But the human ships weren't being destroyed. Instead, they were releasing what looked like small pods into the densest parts of the swarm. Moments later, sections of the Scourge began to falter, individual entities breaking formation and drifting aimlessly. "What are they doing?" Ziv wondered, aloud. Inside the Thermopylae, Reyes watched the first wave of EMP disruptors take effect. "It's working," exclaimed Engineer Ortiz. "The disruptors are disrupting their neural networks. They can't coordinate in the affected areas." "All ships continue deployment," Reyes ordered. "Target the densest concentrations first." The human fleet moved with practiced chaos, each group striking where they sensed weakness, retreating when faced with strong resistance. It was a fighting style born from humanity's long history of adaptation, rather than overwhelming force. On the observation deck, the council representatives watched in stunned silence. "This is not standard military doctrine," said the luminary. "There is no logical pattern to their attacks." Ambassador Talvek's eyes were fixed on the battle display. "That appears to be the point." For hours, the battle continued. Human ships darted in and out of the swarm, deploying their disruptors and using modified mining lasers to cut through concentrated masses of the Scourge. When the disruptors ran low, engineers rigged new ones from ship components. When vessels were damaged, crews made repairs while still in combat. The Raxian fleet, seeing the effectiveness of the human tactics, began to adapt. Their ships broke from their rigid formations and started mimicking the more flexible human approach. Together, they pushed the Scourge back, forcing it away from the path to the homeworld. "We're making progress," Reyes told her crew. "But we need something more permanent than these disruptors. They're just confusing the Scourge, not stopping it." As if in answer to her concerns, a message came through from Earth. Dr. Patel's face appeared on screen. "Captain, we've been analyzing the data you've sent back. We think we've found a way to not just disrupt the Scourge, but neutralize it completely." Reyes leaned forward. "We're listening." The silicon structure of the Scourge has a resonant frequency. If you can generate a specific electromagnetic wave at precisely the right frequency throughout a large area of the swarm, it should cause a chain reaction. The individual entities will crystallize and become inert. "How do we generate a wave that powerful?" asked Engineer Ortiz. Dr. Patel smiled. "That mining vessel of yours has quite a powerful electromagnetic generator for separating ore. With some modifications." Reyes turned to her engineer. "Can we do it?" Ortiz was already running calculations. "It would require channeling all power to the magnetic systems. We'd be defenseless during the process, and there's a 70% chance the ship's power grid will overload. So we'd have one shot," Reyes said. "At best," Ortiz confirmed. Reyes looked at the battle display. The human and Raxian ships were fighting bravely, but the Scourge was seemingly endless. For every section they disrupted, more flowed in from the consumed planets. "Prepare the modifications," she ordered, "and tell the fleet to be ready to cover us." Commander Ziv received the transmission from the Thermopylae with surprise. "You want us to form a protective ring around your vessel? That goes against every principle of distributed defense. Your principles haven't been working so far," Reyes pointed out. "We need 15 minutes to generate the resonance wave. After that, either the Scourge is finished or we are." The Raxian commander was silent for a moment, then nodded. "Very well, Captain. We will protect your ship." As the Raxian fleet moved to surround the Thermopylae, Reyes addressed her crew. "This is going to take everything we've got. Engineering, reroute all power to the magnetic generators. Everyone else, prepare for potential system failures throughout the ship." The massive generators normally used to pull valuable metals from raw ore began to power up. The lights on the Thermopylae dimmed as energy was diverted. Outside, the Raxian ships formed a sphere around the human vessel, their advanced weapons firing continuously to keep the Void Scourge at bay. Wave generator at 60% and rising, reported Ortiz. Hull temperature increasing beyond safe limits. The ship groaned as systems not designed for this kind of power output were pushed to their breaking point. 80%. 90%. Ortiz called out as warning alarms blared across the bridge. Reyes gripped her command chair. Now! The Thermopylae released an invisible wave of precisely calibrated electromagnetic energy. It spread outward, passing harmlessly through the Raxian ships and human vessels. When it reached the Void Scourge, the effect was immediate. The black cloud seemed to shudder. Individual entities began to crystallize, turning from fluid, moving creatures into solid, inert objects. The crystallization spread like a wave through the swarm. It's working, shouted Park from the sensor station. Across the Raxian system, the Void Scourge was transforming from a deadly threat into harmless crystals that sparkled in the light of the system's sun. The bridge crew of the Thermopylae cheered, but their celebration was cut short as the ship's power grid finally overlow. 2 days after the battle, the human fleet orbited the Raxian homeworld. Emergency repair crews worked around the clock to fix damaged vessels. The Thermopylae, too broken to move under its own power, had been towed by Raxian ships, and now floated, alongside their orbital command station. Captain Reyes stood in a large meeting chamber aboard the Raxian station. Around her were the captains of the human fleet, Raxian military leaders and the Galactic Council representatives. Through the chamber's massive viewport, they could see the crystallized remains of the Void Scourge glittering like stars against the blackness of space. Commander Ziv addressed the gathering. The Void Scourge has been neutralized. 4 of our outer planets were lost, but our homeworld and inner colonies are safe. He turned to Reyes. We owe this victory to the humans. The room filled with the soft, clicking sound that Reyes had learned was the Raxian equivalent of applause. Ambassador Talvek stepped forward. The Council acknowledges the unexpected success of the human intervention. However, we must now discuss the implications of these events. What implications? Asked Reyes. The methods used by your species were highly irregular, said the Luminary representative. Your tactical approach defied all established military doctrine. Your ships performed maneuvers that put crews at unnecessary risk. Your final solution involved potentially sacrificing your command vessel. Reyes crossed her arms. It worked, didn't it? That is precisely what concerns us, replied Talvek. Your species was willing to sacrifice yourselves for another species. One that has shown you no previous kindness. That's not unusual for humans, Reyes said with a shrug. The council representatives exchanged glances. Actually, Captain, said the plant-like Voral, it is highly unusual in galactic terms. Most species prioritize their own survival above all else. It is the logical evolutionary approach. Commander Ziv studied the humans with his 4 eyes. When we sent our distress signal, we expected aid from other advanced civilizations with whom we have treaties and trade agreements. We never anticipated that a species we had dismissed as primitive would be the one to save us. The Council has been monitoring your ship's activities since the battle ended, Talvek continued. Your crews have been helping evacuate Raxian civilians from damaged settlements. Your medical personnel are treating injured Raxians. You are sharing your food and water supplies. Yes, Reyes said simply. People needed help. But they are not your people, insisted the Luminary. They are not even of your species. What evolutionary advantage does this behavior provide? Reyes looked at the alien representatives with surprise. It's not about evolutionary advantage. It's about doing what's right. In the medical bay of a human colony ship, Dr. Maya Williams worked alongside Raxian medical staff to treat injured civilians. The Raxian doctor beside her watched in fascination as she set a broken bone on a young Raxian child. Your technique is unusual, noted the Raxian doctor, but effective. Dr. Williams smiled. We have a lot of experience with traumatic injuries. Unfortunately, humans have a long history of hurting each other before we learned better. Yet you risk your own health to treat aliens, the Raxian doctor observed. You have been working for 20 hours without rest. Your species requires sleep. I'll sleep when these people are stable, Williams replied, moving to the next patient. Across the Raxian system, similar scenes played out. Human engineering teams helped restore power to damaged Raxian settlements. Human pilots flew dangerous rescue missions to isolated outposts. Human ships carried evacuees from uninhabitable areas to safe zones. On a Raxian colony moon, a small human mining ship had landed to help with rescue operations. Two engineers, Rodriguez and Chen, were cutting through the collapsed entrance of a shelter where several Raxians were trapped. Life signs are still strong, Chen reported, checking his scanner. We should reach them in about 10 minutes. Suddenly, their comm units crackled with an urgent message. Warning to all ground teams. Seismic activity detected. Potential quake. Imminent. Return to vessels immediately. Rodriguez and Chen looked at each other, then at the partially cleared entrance. If we leave now, these people might not survive until another team can reach them, Rodriguez said. Chen nodded. Then we don't leave. They continued working as the ground beneath them began to shake. Back on the Raxian station, a junior communications officer rushed into the meeting chamber. Commander Ziv, we've lost contact with Rescue Team 12 on Raxus 3. The moon experienced a major quake. Which team was that? Asked Reyes with concern. The officer checked his data pad. 2 humans from the mining vessel Horizon. They were attempting to rescue trapped colonists. Before anyone could respond, another message came through. Station Control, this is Rescue Team 12. We've got 8 Raxian survivors and need immediate evacuation. Both human engineers injured but functional. Relief washed over Reyes's face. Commander Ziv gave orders for an immediate rescue mission. The Luminari representative floated closer to Reyes. Your crew members stayed despite the evacuation order. They risked their lives. Yes, Reyes said. For aliens. For people who needed help, Reyes corrected. As the meeting continued, reports streamed in from around the system. Human ships were distributing emergency supplies. Human doctors were working. Alongside Raxian medical teams, human engineers were helping restore vital systems. The council representatives watched these reports with growing concern. Your species operates on principles we find difficult to understand, Talvek finally said to Reyes. You value the lives of others as much as your own. You willingly suffer to ease the suffering of strangers. You take risks that no logical species would consider reasonable. It's called empathy, Reyes explained, and compassion. We are familiar with the concepts, replied the Luminari, but most species reserve such feelings for their own kind. It is unprecedented to see them extended so readily to others. Commander Ziv had been quiet for some time, watching the humans with his 4 intense eyes. I believe I understand now, he said slowly. This is why you answered our call when others did not. This is why you fought for us when the council advised against it. Yes, Reyes said simply. And this, Ziv continued, is why your species terrifies them. He gestured to the council representatives. Talvek's blue skin darkened in what might have been embarrassment. The council is not terrified. We are concerned about the unpredictability represented by human behavior. You should be terrified, Ziv said, his voice gaining strength. I know I am. The humans fought for us when we had given them no reason to do so. They risked their lives for strangers. They show kindness without expectation of return. He looked at Reyes. Such a species cannot be controlled by the usual means. They cannot be threatened, because they will sacrifice themselves for what they believe is right. They cannot be bribed, because they value things beyond material wealth. The chamber fell, silent as everyone considered his words. The humans, Ziv concluded, have introduced something new to our galaxy, something more dangerous than any weapon, something that may change everything. What? Asked the Voral representative, Ziv's 4 eyes fixed on the alien plant being. The idea that power should serve compassion, not the other way around. Reyes looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. The human fleet seemed so small against the vastness of space and the ancient civilizations that filled it. Yet in just a few days, they had indeed changed something fundamental in the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be an advanced species. The true horror for the watching galaxy wasn't that humans were powerful. It was that they were kind, in a way that defied all logical calculation, and that kindness unbounded by species or familiarity might prove more revolutionary than any technology. 1 week after the defeat of the Void Scourge, the Raxian system buzzed with activity. The initial emergency response was transitioning into something more organized. Captain Reyes stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, now partially repaired, watching the screens that showed ships moving throughout the system. "Status report," she said to Officer Park. "The fleet is spread across the system," Park reported. "Most of our vessels are engaged in relief operations or reconstruction efforts." Engineer Ortiz approached with a tablet. "We've restored main power and basic systems, but the engines still need extensive repairs. We won't be heading home anytime soon." Reyes nodded. "Any word from Earth?" "Yes, Captain," Park replied. "A new fleet has just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge." Reyes looked up in surprise. "Defense reinforcements?" "No, ma'am. These aren't combat vessels." Park adjusted the display. "They're medical ships, science vessels, and construction platforms." The screen showed dozens of new human ships entering the system. Unlike the hastily converted mining vessels and makeshift warships of the First Fleet, these ships had clearly been specially prepared for their missions. "Earth has sent a reconstruction fleet," Reyes said with a smile. "They're here to help rebuild." In his private chambers, Ambassador Talvik was speaking with the other council representatives via secure communication. "The situation has evolved beyond our expectations," he said. "The humans defeated the Void Scourge, yes, but now they're establishing a presence throughout the Raxian system." "Is this a conquest?" asked a council member from a distant world. The Luminari representative glowed brighter in what might have been agitation. "Not in any conventional sense. They aren't establishing military control or demanding resources. They're helping. Helping can be a form of control," suggested another council member. Talvik touched a control, and a holographic display showed human medical teams treating Raxian children, human engineers rebuilding Raxian power plants, and human ships delivering supplies to Raxian colonies. "If this is control, it is unlike any we have seen before," he admitted. "What about the new human fleet?" asked a council member. "All civilian vessels," Talvik replied. "Medical ships, construction platforms, science vessels. No additional warships." The council members fell silent, trying to understand the humans' strategy. "Perhaps," ventured the Vorol representative slowly, "there is no strategy. Perhaps they are simply helping." Dr. Sarah Chen, chief medical officer of the hospital ship Mercy, walked through a makeshift medical center on the Raxian homeworld. Around her, human and Raxian medical staff worked side by side, treating the thousands injured during the Void Scourge attack. A Raxian doctor approached her. "Dr. Chen, we've received the shipment of medical nanites you sent. With these, we can treat internal injuries that would have been fatal." Chen nodded. "Good. Have your people been trained on the programming interface?" "Yes, though we don't fully understand how your people developed this technology." The council had classified humans as a level 3 civilization, but these nanites are at least level 5. Chen smiled. "We tend to develop unevenly. Our medical technology advanced quickly because we care a lot about healing." As they walked through the ward, they passed beds filled with injured Raxians. Many of them reached out to touch Chen as she passed, a gesture of gratitude in Raxian culture. "They remember that humans came when no one else did," the Raxian doctor said quietly. In orbit around the ruined fourth planet of the system, a massive human construction platform had been positioned. Teams of engineers were deploying automated building units to create habitats for displaced Raxians. Chief Engineer Marcus Jackson supervised the operation from the control center. "Begin the foundation layer," he ordered. "We need to have the first habitat ring complete within 3 days." A Raxian official watched the process with amazement. Your construction methods are remarkably efficient. Jackson shrugged. We've had a lot of practice building shelters quickly after disasters. But these are not for humans, the Raxian pointed out. People are people, Jackson replied simply. The design is modified for Raxian physiology, but the need is the same: safe places to live. The Raxian studied the human for a moment. The council told us that humans were primitive, that you had only recently developed space travel, yet you build these massive structures as if it were simple. Jackson laughed. Oh, it's not simple, but humans are good at figuring things out when people need help. Captain Reyes had been invited to a special session of the Raxian High Council. The Grand Chamber was filled with Raxian officials, and a separate section held the Galactic Council representatives. Reyes stood at the center of the room, feeling slightly uncomfortable in her formal uniform. The head counselor of the Raxians, an elderly female named Vera, addressed the gathering. 2 weeks ago, our civilization faced extinction. The Void Scourge had consumed 4 of our worlds and was advancing on our homeworld. We sent a distress signal to the galaxy, expecting our allies in the Galactic Council to come to our aid. Her 4 eyes turned to the council representatives, who looked away uncomfortably. Instead, Vera continued, help came from humans, a species we had dismissed as unimportant, a species we had refused to share knowledge with, refused to trade with, refused even basic diplomatic recognition. The chamber was silent as Vera approached Reyes. Now human medical ships treat our injured. Human construction platforms build homes for our displaced people. Human scientists help us understand and neutralize the remains of the Void Scourge. Human food feeds our children. She turned to face the Galactic Council representatives. While the council debated, humans acted. While advanced civilizations calculated risks, humans took risks. The question before us now is, what does this mean for our understanding of what constitutes an advanced species? Ambassador Talvek stood. The Council acknowledges the unexpected contributions of humanity in this crisis. However, we must consider the broader implications. The humans have deployed technology that exceeds what we believed they possessed. They have demonstrated military capabilities that were not in our records. Is that your concern? Reyes asked. That we're more advanced than you thought? Our concern, Talvik said carefully, is that we don't understand your species' motivations. You gain no territory from this intervention. You extract no resources. You demand no political concessions. What do humans want from the Raxians? Reyes looked at him with genuine confusion. We don't want anything. People needed help, so we helped. Now they need to rebuild, so we're helping with that too. A murmur ran through the chamber. The concept seemed to genuinely baffle many of the aliens present. Vyra raised her hands for silence. Perhaps this is the turning point we have needed. For too long, the Galactic Council has measured advancement by technology alone, by weapons, by territory controlled, by resources gathered. She gestured toward Reyes. The humans show us a different path. They measure advancement by their capacity to help others, by their willingness to take risks for strangers, by their ability to put aside differences and see only the need. The Luminari representative glowed brightly. This is idealism, not practical governance. A galactic civilization cannot function on such principles. Why not? Asked Vera simply. It seems to function quite well for the humans. As the debate continued in the chamber, ordinary Raxians and humans throughout the system worked side by side. In hospitals, in construction zones, in research labs, and in distribution centers, 2 species that had been strangers were becoming allies. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, news of what had happened in the Raxian system began to spread to other worlds. News of a young species that defied the established order. News of humans who came when called, who fought when needed, and who stayed to rebuild afterward. The galaxy was changing. The humans had not merely stopped the Void Scourge, they had introduced a new idea of what it meant to be truly advanced, not measured by age or technology or power, but by compassion, by courage, and by the willingness to help others without calculation. It was indeed a turning point, though few yet understood just how profound that turn would be. 1 month after the defeat of the Void Scourge, Captain Elena Reyes stood before the full Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber on the Council's central world was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Many had traveled for days, just to witness this historic session. The Thermopylae had been repaired enough for the journey, and Reyes had been summoned to speak on behalf of humanity. Behind her stood several other human captains and officers who had participated in the Raxian rescue mission. High Counselor Mivox, leader of the Council for over 200 years, addressed the assembly. We gather today to discuss the unprecedented events in the Raxian system and their implications for galactic governance. The ancient alien's 6 eyes focused on Reyes. Captain, your species' intervention has created a significant disruption in established galactic protocols. The Council must determine how to respond. Reyes stood straight in her formal uniform. My species responded to a distress call. We saved billions of lives. What exactly requires a response from the Council? A murmur ran through the chamber at her directness. Most species approach the Council with careful deference, not straightforward questions. The issue, explained Ambassador Talvek, who had been promoted to Senior Council Liaison, is not what humans did, but how this changes our understanding of humanity's place in galactic society. Another Council member, a crystalline being from a distant system, spoke. Humans were classified as a Level 3 developmental species. Your technology was deemed primitive, your cultural advancement limited by your history of internal conflict. Yet you defeated a threat that Level 7 civilizations could not. We didn't win because of advanced technology, Reyes replied. We won because we approached the problem differently. That is precisely what concerns us, said the Luminary representative. Your species does not follow predictable patterns of behavior. You make decisions based on emotional responses rather than logical calculation. Reyes looked around the chamber, at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. Is that really so frightening? That we help others because we feel it's right, not because we've calculated some benefit? It is not frightening, said High Counselor Mivox carefully. It is disruptive. At the back of the chamber, Commander Ziv and a delegation of Raxians had been observing silently. Now Ziv stepped forward. If I may address the Council, he said, his voice firm. 1 month ago, my civilization faced extinction. The Council, with all its advanced species and technology, offered us data collection and containment strategies. Humans, whom you call primitive, offered immediate action and saved our people. He gestured to the human officers. Since then, they have helped us rebuild. They have shared medical technology, construction techniques, and agricultural methods. They have asked for nothing in return. That is the issue, interrupted a council member. No species acts without self-interest. There must be a hidden motive. Reyes sighed. There's no hidden motive. Helping others is in our self-interest. It makes our universe better, safer, and more cooperative. It's that simple. Perhaps, suggested Talvek, humans simply calculate gains differently than other species. Perhaps you see value in cooperation itself. That's closer to the truth, Reyes acknowledged. But it's not just calculation. We genuinely care about the well-being of others, even those different from us. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered this idea. While the council deliberated, news of humanity's actions had spread throughout the galaxy. Across thousands of worlds, beings of all kinds were discussing these strange humans, who fought for strangers and shared knowledge freely. On a small agricultural world, children gathered around an elder who told stories of the humans who defeated the Void Scourge. On a trading hub, merchants discussed new routes to human space, eager to establish connections with this unusual species. On a war-torn planet where 2 species had fought for generations, leaders from both sides quietly began peace talks inspired by stories of humans who valued all life regardless of form. Back in the council chamber, High Counselor Mivox announced the council's decision. After much deliberation, the council has reclassified humanity as a Level 6 species. A surprised murmur ran through the chamber. Such a dramatic reclassification was unprecedented. However, Mivox continued, this classification does not adequately capture the unique nature of human development. You have advanced unevenly, prioritizing certain technologies while neglecting others. More significantly, your ethical framework appears to have evolved faster than is typical. Reyes smiled slightly. We've had a lot of practice learning from our mistakes. The Council has also voted to offer humanity full membership, effective immediately. This announcement caused an even greater stir. No species had ever been offered membership without at least a century of observation and evaluation. We would be honored to join, Reyes replied carefully, provided membership does not require us to abandon our principles of mutual aid and intervention in crises. High Counselor Mivox's expression was unreadable. That qualification illustrates precisely why the Council needs human perspective, Captain. Your species sees obligations where others see calculations. As the formal proceedings concluded, Ambassador Talvek approached Reyes privately. There is something you should know, Captain, he said quietly. Since news of your actions in the Raxian system spread, 17 worlds have sent requests to establish direct relations with Earth. That's good, isn't it? Reyes asked. It is. Unprecedented, Talvek replied. And there is more. Council records show that 11 species have begun revising their ethical frameworks. 3 have already announced new policies regarding mutual aid in emergencies. Reyes looked surprised. Because of what we did? Because you showed another way to be advanced, Talvek said. You forced many of us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own societies. What truths? The blue-skinned alien seemed to choose, his words carefully. That perhaps we had confused technological advancement with civilization. That perhaps being truly advanced means retaining compassion, even when cold logic suggests abandoning it. 6 months later, on the rebuilt Raxian, homeworld, a monument was unveiled in the central plaza of the capital city. It depicted a human hand and a Raxian hand reaching toward each other. The inscription, written in both human and Raxian languages, read simply, "They came when called." Beneath it, in smaller text, "May we do the same." Throughout the galaxy, the ripples of what had happened continued to spread. Old alliances were being reconsidered, ancient policies questioned. Species that had never cooperated began cautious dialogues. Some council members still viewed humans with suspicion, seeing their unpredictable compassion as potentially destabilizing. Others studied human culture with fascination, wondering how a species could develop such strong ethical frameworks despite their short history. But all agreed on one thing: the galaxy had changed. What had arrived in response to a desperate distress call was not just a fleet of ships. It was an idea that advancement could be measured by kindness as much as by power, by the willingness to help rather than the ability to conquer. For some civilizations, this idea was indeed horrifying. It challenged millennia of careful calculation and self-interest. It disrupted hierarchies based on technological achievement. It suggested that perhaps the most primitive instinct, the desire to help others, was actually the most advanced. As Captain Reyes prepared to return to Earth, she stood at the viewport of the Thermopylae looking out at the stars. When the distress signal had first arrived at their small mining outpost, she could never have imagined how responding to it would change the course of galactic history. Sometimes, she reflected, the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or weapons or even knowledge. Sometimes it was simply the decision to help.